Hello, this is my 6.02 Valorant agent tier list. We're going to start off with the duelists, and we're going to start off with Raze, who goes straight into the S tier. She's probably the third best agent in the game when looking at competitive and ranked combined. The reason being is that she has basically everything you want in a duelist. She can entry, she has verticality to her entries, she has threat to her entries. She can be used in really, really good like trap plays with Astra, Fade, Guy. She can be used with a lot of different agents to do trap plays. And overall, she just has a lot of damage threat, and that's what you want from a duelist. Secondly, the next one we've got we got Jet. I can't speak. We got Jet, who goes in A tier. And the reason why she's in A tier, I have had her in B tier in the past, and that's because Chamber was meta. I know that Chamber's out of the meta. She's probably the agent with the most access to the AWP or the operator. So that means that she is going to be bumped up like a tier basically, because she basically has like the easiest way to use operator, even though I do think people need to be a bit more lenient with where the operator can go. And like, because sometimes you just need an angle being held with an operator. Or sometimes you've found like a hole in the person's strat, but you don't know how to put the Jet there, things like that, right? Instead, you should pick it up on the Killjoy, you should pick it up on the Fade, pick it up on someone else. I think things like that need to be figured out a lot more. And it also needs to pop up on ranked maybe a bit more, but until we see it a lot more in competitive, we won't see it ranked. So hopefully we see a lot more people just be a bit more lenient with the operator in competitive. Speaking like specifically to Jet's kit, she does have the good entry. I would say it's probably one of the worst entries out of the ones with mobility. But I do think that well, when it's not set up anyway. If Yoru probably has the worst when it's not set up, but when it's set up, he probably has one of the best. But Jet is like the middle of the park in my opinion. When like it's pretty much the easiest to set up, but she's also doesn't have as much as the value as the other ones can have when they're set up. And that's basically it for Jet. So the next one is Neon. She is pretty strong in mid range, pretty strong at the early round. So she can like put up walls to fake the opponent. She can make plays like think about Breeze mid, where she could like put up the wall mid and then she could like run down mid, do things, or she could use that wall to then fake doing those things and do something else. She's very good at that sort of stuff. She can also help support her. She can like support herself, and she can also like extend the support of the other support agencies with, to sort of almost bolster them. So when Breach would stun something, she can also extend that stun with her own thing. I mean that would also make Breach a bit more strong, right? Because his stun would force him into a position, and then Neon would stun them. So it would make those two work off each other very well. And she has that opportunity where she has that type of utility that she can just help support her support. And I think that's really, really good. I think she's really, really strong. And I think that she has opportunities to move up. She might need a buff, or she may just need like maybe better maps. She did lose Breeze, so maybe she is on the way down actually with Breeze gone. I'll have to think about it and see for next tier list. So next one is Yoru. He's in the B tier for me. Pretty much the best I've ever rated him, I think. I think he is really, really overloaded. His kit's very overloaded. He has a lot of util. He can sort of bombard sites, bombard the enemy basically in general. He has very, very good mid-rounding. He can fake the enemy over multiple rounds. He can make such amazing plays over multiple rounds. So what I mean by that is that he can set up for a play in future rounds with a play in the current round, and then he can sort of use that to mind game the opponent. He has very, very, very good mid-rounding and strategy creation in general. He's like very, very fun to do that sort of stuff with. And he can be really, really strong if set up, but if he's not set up, he's going to be probably one of the worst agents in the game. Kind of similar to Neon actually, in that sense, where if she's not set up, she's also going to struggle. And Yoru is exactly the same in that sense. Although I do think that Yoru might actually be a bit more self-sufficient than Yoru, than Neon. I think Yoru actually does have some more self-sufficiency to him than Neon. But I think that he's overall too hard to play for the average player, first of all. And even in competitive, he can be a bit too hard to play with and to play. You may have to go out of your way too much to actually have a Yoru. So I do think like he is B tier, despite being probably in the strongest state he's ever been. And I do think that he is like realistically, if he was easier to play, he would be going to A, pushing for S potentially. Reyna is easy D tier. No, easy D tier. I mean, I was gonna say D tier actually, but I think she's C tier. And the reason why is that this is a ranked as well as competitive tier list. It's like a combination of the two. And I think in ranked she is about a B tier. because she can just like win more. She's like a snowball type mechanic type agent where she can just keep winning as long as she gets kills. That's it. But as soon as she like stops feasting. If she does not get the kills, then she will be completely useless. And I think in competitive, that's so much more like amplified, and where she just has no util. So therefore, she's going to be kind of useless majority of the time. She can win more, but it doesn't matter a huge amount if the enemy team are coordinated. If you can like get the individual kills, because sometimes you can just lose to util and you don't have any util to use in response. And if you're shut down, then your utility is useless, or you just don't have enough utility compared to other agents. You could have been picked. That could have been picked. So I just don't think Reyna is that good. I think if this was just a ranked tier list, then I'd be like, yeah, great, you can pick her to heal and win more, right? There's gonna be like very few coordinated utility efforts to actually stop you when you're snowballing. But if we're looking at just solely competitively, she's the worst agent, and it's not even close. Phoenix is next. So Phoenix is actually very much more like an initiator than he is a duelist. But I think he does have two good abilities. He has two bad abilities. He's very much a sufferer of just having horrible abilities, especially one of them being his signature makes that even worse. So he has really good flashes and he has really good ult. But the problem is that he's let down by his molly being absolutely horrendous. For a molly, he's just limited by range. And lots of people get baited to use a self heal when usually it's just majority time better to use it as a molly. And he's, they should probably heal off damage dealt rather than off just healing him. As like an extra, because honestly, it feels like it should just be the molly should be used as a molly majority of the time. And the blaze wall is kind of useless, but it does have better use than the molly. So it can be kind of used similar to fast lane from Neon, where you can use it to block sight lines to get onto sites, to walk onto site, or to walk into a difficult position, to walk past the trap, something like that. But I do think maybe it needs like a speed boost in the vicinity sort of mechanic, where he amplifies his speed when he's near it. Or if it maybe when he's directing the wall. So if he like taps the wall, he taps it down and it goes normally, just a straight line. Or when he's guiding it, maybe he turns into like a little bird or a little phoenix or something. A little bird. I suppose there has to be like a phoenix. It turns into like a little phoenix, and like sort of rides the wall and appears at the location it ended. I think that could be an interesting way to make Blaze interesting. Don't know how good that would be. Also don't know how balanced it would be, but maybe just anything to help Blaze, give him some. He needs mobility basically, and I think anything to help him would be nice. There, anything to make those abilities cool. Next one is Sky, who goes into B tier, I think. No, we got C tier. So the reason why that I was confused. So my good reaction is to put her in B tier, right? And the reason why I'm going to C tier right now is because I'm sort of in the dark about her right now. So what I mean by that is, until I see her get played to like enough, I don't know exactly how good she is. In competitive, this is like the safe pick I've got out of all the tier list. I don't know 100%. Like I feel like she could be A tier, B tier, like high B tier, low A tier, or even just like mid A tier. But the problem is that she doesn't get played enough. For her utility, I think honestly she has a bad ability in regrowth, but I think the rest of her abilities are really good. She's also really good now that Chamber and Killjoy are meta. The dog is really good at like dealing with their utility. Like think about Haven and Split. I think I really would like to have Sky on those maps. And I think she's honestly one of the better agents on those maps. Like I don't know why we're playing Breach over her at the moment, and hopefully teams will learn this. That she's going to bring more value than Breaches majority of the time. Especially if you pair her with Fade instead of having the Breach, you have the Fade instead. I think that'd be a good way to also have a part of Breach while also having a lot of like the more value from Sky, from her dog and things like that, right? Even though I do think that Fade is worse than Sova at the moment. Yeah, I think Sky has like really good abilities. Her Seekers are very akin to Cypher's ult, without having to have like double sentinel. So if you do run like a Killjoy, then you can also have access to a very similar ult to Cypher's. She definitely has a more initiator version of that ult, I would say, but obviously that makes sense. She's an initiator, and her flashes are really good. She has the opportunity to get information still, but you do want a reveal paired with her, so Sova or Fade. And if you are a team that's dropping breach, you probably want to look at the fade more. But you know, it depends on the rest of your comp. To be honest, like what you got. Like if you got Astra, then maybe you know you're going to be using Astra wall a lot to take the sites instead of needing a breach wall and things like that, right? Just depends on what you want. Like what kind of agents you're dropping to take on the sky. So next one is breach. So I have a video called Why Breach Sucks. I made it pretty recently. And I'm not going to go over too much why, because I don't want to overlap with that video too much. But essentially, he's very easy to play. And while he is fairly adaptable, he has a really, really low floor, but he also has a really, really, really low ceiling. So I don't see a reason why teams should play this agent other than just being like a comfortable pick and very easy to pick up and play. Rather than like trying to learn the other agents, because of the other agents in his role, in his slot, are much more valuable, can have a lot more of a higher ceiling to them. As long as you learn how to play them. Actually, it just dawned on me that the reason why Breach is probably being played right now is because a lot of teams just got formed, and that they're just playing Breach because he's easy to play, easy to pick up and play with, and just play in general as a team. Yeah, okay, that makes sense actually. Okay, so Breach is definitely C. He's definitely better than Reyna and Phoenix, but I don't think he's better than the Sky. I think Sky will rise up as we go on through the year. Especially if the meta stays like this with Cypher and Killjoy. Yeah, that's basically it for Breach. You know, if you want to see more about Breach, then my Why He Sucks video is what you want to go to. So we've got Sova next. Sova is A tier. So he kind of fell off since his drone nerfs. Really, his shock nerfs were horrible, weren't that nice, but I do think that they weren't too bad. Honestly, they're just made in balance, to be honest. He is also very valuable right now too because of Killjoy. So he's really, really strong against Killjoy, can kill her Yuta with shocks, and then he can also counter her ult. So he is really, really valuable right now. And that's honestly probably why Fade is being pushed out the meta quite a bit, is because you kind of want to keep this over. Because you want the additional way to, if you don't run Brim, you want the additional way to sort of deal with the Killjoy ult. And even then, if you don't run like anything else to deal with it, then it's nice to have that option. Overall, his ult does suck. Otherwise, though, in my opinion, I think his ult isn't great compared to other initiator ults, because it's not really. It honestly has a lot of threat on the bomb. So it can be really, really strong post plant, and he also does have a lot of threat when Killjoy is in meta. Like threat on the Killjoy ult, right? So they can't just ult for free. He does have the ability to just counter it. So I do think like he does have a very good strong place in the meta. I think his L drone is maybe a bit too expensive. I think it should be 350, not 400. That might be a bit too lenient. Maybe it should even be 300. Sorry, a bit too harsh. Sorry. But I think 350 is a nice middle ground right now to just test the waters with it, and then maybe it should be even lower than that. But I'm pretty sure Riot probably think he's in a fairly balanced state, and that's completely fine. I actually think that he is fairly balanced right now, especially with Killjoy being in meta. It's definitely bumping him up quite a bit. I do actually think like he would be the bottom of A tier without Killjoy in the meta though, so I don't think it's like a massive change, but I do think it's good enough to keep him like fairly decent locked in A. We got Fade next, who has obviously fell off quite a bit, but she still is a strong agent. As long as Killjoy is not being played on that map, then you can play her. You can play Fade. I think if Cypher's being played, if Chamber, I guess Chamber, but probably not Chamber, probably like a Viper double like controller type. The meta, you can, well, not meta, like meta on the map, I guess. You can use Fade. Fade is really, really strong in those situations. It's just when Killjoy is being added, like the question is, do you want Sova over Fade if Killjoy is being played? And I think the answer to that is actually no at the moment. So yeah, that's basically it for Fade. I think overall she is strong, right? She's as strong as she used to be. But well, not really as strong as she used to be, right? She got nerfed, but I think she still is no different, really. She's still A tier for me. I just think right now the meta doesn't favour her that much when Killjoy is being played a lot. So next one is KO, who in my opinion is the strongest agent in the game. He has so much value as an initiator. He can play by himself and he can play for his team. He has information. He has access to one of the strongest things in the game, which is silencing. He's just generally really, really strong. He has his ult, which is an AoE silence. So if you don't get, you don't have to be particularly accurate when you have your ult up to like silence in particular person. As long as they're near you, they are silenced basically. And on top of that as well, you can actually res as well. You can have a res as well. So if you are able to like enter onto site, take the site, then he can get res for the post plant, and that can make him really, really strong to just have like that extra, basically like 150 health bar. He's like 250 health in that round, basically, if he gets rest. So he's like really, really strong in a lot of situations as well. Just in general, from the length of his kit. He has so much, like the depth of his kit. He has so much stuff he can do. He can the supporting, playing for himself. He can get rezzed. He has a bunch of things going for him. And I think he's basically the strongest agent in the game. So next one is Brimmy. So actually, I might do Brimmy, Astra, and Omen all together. So they're all the same tier for me. I think Astra is probably the strongest out the three. With these two kind of like being very, very close to her as well. It's not. I don't think it's a massive difference between these three agents, to be honest. So what I would say is, I think Brimmy's very much attack minded, Omen's very much defense minded, and Astra is a good mix of the two. But she has the opportunity to set up trap players a lot better than at least Brim. I think Omen is also one of these trap players type agents. So I think overall these three agents are just like what I would consider balanced controllers right now. I think Astra's pretty strong, so honestly, I could see her moving up. Actually, I just realized I don't think Yoru's the strongest in B. I think he's actually probably like, I think he's actually below these. So I think Astra is very close to A. He's definitely stronger than the other two controllers. But I think that it's like negligibly close. To a point where like it's just what map you're playing basically. So sometimes you can argue like maybe I want Astra on Ascent rather than Omen, or maybe I want Omen on Ascent rather than Astra. It just kind of depends how you play and what other agents you're playing. Like if you're playing like a Jet on Ascent, then you probably want Omen. But if you're playing Raze on Ascent, you probably want Astra. Like it's just like that sort of nuance basically. And the next one is Viper. Viper's like probably the second best agent in the game right now. She's still really, really strong despite the changes to her ult. She definitely lost a lot of options, but honestly, completely doesn't matter. The pit itself is still pretty strong. She has lineups she can play. She can stop basically all agents getting to site aside from the more mobile ones. So she can get overwhelmed by like Raze or Jet or Neon, people that can control space and make space. She can struggle with. But overall, like she can also just as well. Like if she's prepared to deal with those things, she can deal with those things. It's within her kit to deal with those things as well. So as long as she knows that she's going to have to deal with it and she's planned for it, and that's honestly her biggest weakness, is that she has to plan for things. But I think Viper's at a point where people have figured her out pretty well, on how to play her. And I think that she's one of those agents that people just have figured out a lot of the things with her. So that's why she's quite strong as well, in that people just understand how to play against these things. Honestly, unlike some other agents in the roster. Next one is Harbor. So I think Harbor is actually quite a surprise for probably going to be a surprise for a lot of people. I think Harbor is quite high on the list. I actually think he's better than these like three smoking agents. The difference is that he's not going to be in their slot. He's actually more in the Viper slot, which is actually the secondary smoker. I think he's so strong in that, and he actually has like the different. He has like a nuance to him. Sorry. Where he can be a bit more of a mobile version of Viper. By mobile, I don't obviously mean like the agent itself. I mean that he can move his setups around on the map mid round, right? He can move his wall, like he can wall once and then he can wall somewhere else. So he has that ability, right? And the Cascade also is very, very underestimated ability, where it can smoke for as long as like 14 seconds, or maybe a bit longer. And at that point, like you can use wall and you can Cascade twice, and then you can wall again. So you actually can do a lot on defense with just having like permanent smokes upon in an area, right? And you can also obviously do that with attack too if you want to. If you save like everything for like if you're playing second smoker, you probably don't need to do the initial smokes at the start. You probably don't play in like very, very fast, but technically you can keep the smokes up for the whole post plant basically. So honestly, he's immensely strong. His Cove just needs maybe a tiny buff. I think lots of people are looking at Cascade and making it rotate. or making it so he can place it like a Yoru clone. I have heard those things, but I think his Cascade is actually one of the more broken parts of his kit, and I think don't need to be touched, because otherwise it's like, I think if he gets one of those two things, it's probably one of the most broken abilities in the game. And I think that his Cove actually is the one that needs more attention. So maybe just making it so when the shield breaks, it actually has like maybe 3 seconds, or even like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds, where it just doesn't disappear. Actually, I'm pretty sure it does stay there for like 1 second already, or maybe 1.5 seconds already. But I think it just needs like a tiny bit longer, maybe a tiny bit longer, for it to be good. Because things like that matter to a controller, where they can have like smoke up timing can matter a lot to a controller. Especially because I think as well people don't quite understand Cove enough yet. Because I think a lot of the time people tend to like give the Cove to the opponent, or sometimes you're forced to in some situations, where they can like break it for free, or they can break it with basically no consequence, because maybe you're too early, too late, and that can also make him really, really weak in ranked. Which is honestly in ranked, I think he's like a B, C tier, because people don't really know understand how to play him. But I think in ranked, I think in like competitive is S tier, or maybe like high A tier. So I'm kind of like middle grading him here, where I'm leaning more towards his competitive potential at least, where I think that he is very, very strong, but people just need to learn how to play with him. But yeah, that's basically it for Harbor. So this one is Sage. So I was debating whether to put Sage on A tier or B tier. To me, she's either the top of B tier or bottom of A tier. I think I've settled on A tier. Bottom of A tier. Actually, let's put Harbor like. So I've sort of settled with Sage here. Because I think the rival is split, bumped her up to A for me. She was B for me, I think. And I think the heal is actually better than it was. I think healing yourself for 30 less is definitely worth healing teammates for 40 more. If you think about it, 40 more is essentially the same as one Vandal bullet, and it's more than one Phantom bullet. So in lots of situations, obviously mathematically you can break this down. I've already talked about this before, where if it depends on like what health they're on. But now with the Sage heal, right, it doesn't matter really what health they're on. You're always going to get back to the 3 bullet threshold for a Vandal and body shots, right? You're always going to get back to that threshold, regardless of what health you're on. And in some cases, obviously, you can get to more technically, depending on how much armor you technically lost and things like that. Like mathematically, I'm sure it can work out that way. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't do the full math on it. But essentially, the more important thing to look at is like 40 increments of 40 for Vandal bullets and things like that. Obviously, there's differences with other guns you might be against, right? But generally, I look at it like that, because in ranked, that's probably the easiest way. It's probably the easiest way in general in these sort of videos as well to look at it without going into it too in depth. So when you're healing someone before, like, it wouldn't really be worth it to heal them in some situations where they wouldn't even gain like an additional bullet, or maybe they'll gain 1, right? But now they can gain a lot, and I think even healing in general is like a situational thing anyway. Like, if someone's headshotting you a lot, like if the enemy team's headshotting you or one-tapping you, you're not healing anyone, right? They're dead. You can't heal them when they're dead. So it's just like the situations that Sage's heal is good in aren't like drastic anyway. And the amount of heal like is honestly not that big. That it's now 30 for her as well, because more than likely you're going to be gaining 1 bullet worth of damage, which is good. Is good with the 30 self heal, and the 100 health is really, really good for teammates, because it basically guarantees that they're going to get back up to. So it's honestly just good. I think overall Sage is good. I think people need to relearn how to play on split again, because the amount of mid walls I see, I just get insta broken. It's starting to tilt me, even though I'm not even in the game right now and I'm actually getting tilted. Next one is Cypher. Cypher, I've got at the top of B tier. So, I'm starting to get out of breath. Been talking for so long. So Cypher is pretty good. He has a lot of good Cypher, a lot of good setups he can do. A lot of options he has around the map. He's got really good mid rounding on the attack. Honestly, on defense too. He can do a lot of different things. He can push. He can not push. He can play any setup. He can do a lot of different things. He can use his cam for early info, like he should be, to be honest. And he has cages that can help him lurk, that can help him sites. They can help him be in difficult positions. He's generally just very, very good right now. The problem is that his ult still has restrictions on it, which is kill someone first. It can be hefty sometimes, especially in competitive, where you have to kind of get the first kill to get value from his ult. You can't just use it. You don't have the agency to run. And that can be quite bad for him. Get his value. I think he also does need to have a bit more ways to mix. So what I mean by that is, or maybe just basically a sheer quantity change in what he can do. So like, obviously an additional trip sounds horrible, but maybe like an extra cage, or maybe he has roofs on his cages, so he doesn't get hit by silver darts or eyes, or can be seen into his smokes with drones and other cameras and things like that. Right, give his cage a lot more security in some sense. I think that'd be pretty good. It also stops people from, very fringe case where people can drop into his cage and then surprise him when he walks into a cage or something like that. That's very fringe though. Just thinking about it. Okay, next one is Cypher. Sorry, not Cypher. Is Chamber. So I've got also Beta, who's like sort of the lower part of Beta. The reason being is because I think he's not. I think he's actually in a balanced position, and I think he got overhated. I don't think he's by any means a bad agent now. I think he's just a shell of what he used to be, and people are too afraid to keep playing him because he wasn't as good. He's just not as good as he used to be, and they're remembering old Chamber. But I think as time goes on, people will start to remember. People start to forget what old Chamber felt like, and then they'll come back to him and be like, "Oh, he's not even that bad. Like he kind of fits in." In some situations, arguably you can say he still is good on Fracture, things like that, right? There's plenty. I mean, he's good on Split too. Actually, I think he's pretty good on Split. I think the addition of Split is good, but he did lose Breeze, and I think Breeze was one of his best maps. So he's kind of at the moment he's in a weird spot, but I think overall he'll start to rise again. Maybe not rise again, but I think people will start to realize he's kind of like in the middle ground. He's not actually bad. He's in the middle ground. Because he didn't lose a huge amount. He still has the ability to take that first fight and like teleport away for free, right? But the for free part is kind of in quotations now, because you kind of have to know where for free is. You can't just say it's for free because you've got another rendezvous elsewhere, right? You kind of have to know the timing of when for free is, or like when you can get a free kill. I'll start using that, yeah. So like where do you place the rendezvous, and what timing do I use to get this free kill? Is it like a question you kind of have to ask yourself as Chamber now? Where before it was just like, I'm going to place my thing here, and my thing like on the other side of the map, or like at the back side. And I want to press the button, I'm completely safe. So I'm just going to go for the pick now and screw it, dude. And then I can like, use that, like, if there's no one there, then I'll just like push up to the edge of my rendezvous and sit there and hold until they maybe walk back and don't expect me there. Like things like that, right? There's a lot more risk tied to doing stuff like that. And I think it's a healthy thing for him to have. So there you go. And we got Killjoy next, who's the top of A for me. She's like the 4th best agent in the game. The pick rate also, you can see that. You can see I don't really reference pick rate because usually it's kind of useless. But generally it's good to use pick rate to then acknowledge like people see value in her. And overall like pros are seeing the value in her. That's what I mean by acknowledging her pick rate. Is that people are seeing the value in her, and for good reason. The reasons are that she has value is, she has a really, really strong area denial. She has really good trap plays. Trap plays are very, very big right now, and she is one of the strongest agents to do those things. She also has like some of the better counter, like flanking and anti-flank utility. Obviously, doesn't beat Cypher, but she has like the second best simply because she's one of the few agents that do have like alarm bots available to her and things like that. Alarm bot and like a trap like turret available to her, so she does have like really good things. The turret is long range, so it's not as tied to her. Like the range radius that she has to keep it activated in is annoying, but bear in mind that the turret is fairly open. Like it has like just like a cone that you sees, right? So you don't have to be you can place the turret like quite close to you, so then you can still play where you want to play, and it can still see what you need it to see, right? So I think it's pretty good still. The alarm bot's a bit more weird with the way you need to use it now. Like you use it to sort of like set up a trap play on the site with your traps and things like that. When you're on attack anyway, it's a bit weird, it can be. When before it was like a lot more lenient where you could place it because it didn't have the range, so you could like use it to control the map more. So thinking about Icebox, right? You could place a turret for your teammates today when you're on attack, and then you could go and place the alarm bot like in B, basically like next to the orb if you're not getting contested. And then you could leave it there, so then you would know if anyone's pushed from B, for map control basically. And you could, that's probably one of the worst examples actually. There's probably other examples like Ascent maybe with placing it in front of B and then attacking A. You can tell if someone's like taken tiles from B because you've got that alarm bot there. So, and obviously you can't do that before like you could before. So she still does have her weaknesses in like the range, but overall, she is definitely strong though for the trap players mainly. And you know, a couple of other things that she's strong at, like defending the bomb. Her Killjoy, like a lot of the meta actually revolves around her ult right now, because of the amount of health it has. Right, that the health change is one of the strongest things in the game right now. The fact that it's basically unkillable by like it has like a very small amount of things that can kill it, and it just kind of can give you a free sight in a lot of situations. So overall, Killjoy is really strong. And this is the final tier list. And that's it. So thanks for watching. If you like what you see, or if you have any any like you want to have a discussion in the comments, I always enjoy talking to people about my reasonings and things in comments and things like that. Especially if you didn't get anything, so I'm not the most articulate. So if you didn't get anything, or if you want to talk about things in the comments, that's fun. That's fine. If you enjoyed it, then please subscribe and give it a like. That helps me tremendously. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.